Welcome to the Emerge Podcast, where Ronnie Doss shares insights regarding life, leadership, and personal development. For more of our resources, visit ronniedoss.com. Now, let's join the podcast.
Hi there, this is Ronnie Doss. My team and I are really excited that you decided to stop by. You know, I've spent the last decade working with individuals from all over the world to help them transform their thinking and enhance their life experience. Not only do I train teams at some of the most successful companies and organizations in the world, I offer coaching programs specifically designed for individuals much like yourself that are committed to increasing productivity and achieving personal goals. I've had powerful mentors along the way that have taught me principles that absolutely shifted how I was living my life, and those principles I want to share with you. My passion is people, and there's nothing more exciting than seeing a life transformed for the better. This is what I've decided to give my life to. So hop over to ronniedoss.com to check out some of the video programs I personally designed to help you build stronger relationships, improve your communication skills, and develop an intentional mindset. I know these resources will assist you in finding a greater sense of purpose, staying focused on what matters, and breaking through old mental barriers. Get ready. This is your time. So one of the toughest things that I think that we can ever do is to make ourselves vulnerable. Right? Like as a team, I talk about things that we can do to make sure we're stepping into the unknown, pushing the envelope a bit. I remember years ago that Mr. Clemmer, the guy that I worked for, he was so great. He was such a great voice in my life. One of the things he asked me, he said, "Ronnie, what's the biggest mistake you've made in the last 30 days?" And I said, "Well, I don't really know. I said, I don't know that I've made any." And he goes, "You know, if you think about that," he goes, "I could say that you might not be the right person for the job then." And what he meant was, if you're not pushing the envelope a bit, stretching and having conversations that you might not normally have, calling people, engaging in a bit of a dialogue that's a little deeper than just the surface level BS stuff that we go into, we can miss a lot of what I think life is really about. It's the deeper level. It's the thing that's foundational that we can grow really healthy relationships from, produce really healthy results for our family, for our team, on our job, business, all that stuff. And so making yourself vulnerable is huge. And so I just wanted to spend a few minutes today, and I just want to give you a challenge. This isn't going to be a long podcast. I did one yesterday, and so I think that was some great content there on reasons why we fail. If you hadn't listened to it, go back and listen to that. But I think making ourselves vulnerable, it opens us up to feel and to experience things that maybe we aren't feeling or experiencing when we're really shut off to the world. You know, right now you're probably a little fearful. You may be a little concerned. You look around, we're wondering, is the economy going to shut back down as far as businesses and so forth? We got the COVID thing happening. You still got protests. We got things that are happening. And there are good things coming out of all of this. But I think the underlying fear causes us to do the thing of, we call it fight or flight. You either fight against something, you put a lot of energy into pushing against something, or you fly away, and that means you run from it. And a lot of times when it's the response is one of those two things, it's fighting, is like you're pushing against something or you're running away from something. I think when you're fighting, you're not necessarily digging. And I think to really get to a place where we can see with a little bit more clarity what we want our life to be about, we've got to be more vulnerable. You know, I think having some conversations with people that we know, if we've got somebody that we trust, and say, hey, this is really what's going on for me. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm afraid of. This is what I'm hoping to achieve. This is what I'm experiencing in my relationships with maybe my spouse or the people that I work with or maybe my children. You know, being really honest about that opens you up to where I believe that you can then start to receive things that are better and different than what you might have experienced or received when you were just going through the motions. And right now, I think if there's any response to what we see is many people are like, well, you just put your head down and work. And that's very true. But I think also one of the things you've got to do is you got to say, okay, in the midst of me working, in the midst of me persevering, what do I want to bring to that? What element, what value do I want to bring to this perseverance of just pushing through? And I think one of the best things that you can bring to this is a willingness to be vulnerable. And that takes a lot of courage, right? Like to sit down with your spouse and to have conversations that you know need to be had. To sit down with maybe a family member and say, hey, you know, this is what's going on and this is kind of how I've felt and this is what I've seen, but I want to see if we can make an adjustment here because the relationship matters to me. You know, we don't want to wait till it's too late for that. And I think sometimes we do because the world is so chaotic and there's so many things going on around us that it can cause us to feel overwhelmed. But one of the things that I was working with someone this morning on that I coach, and I was saying that, instead of seeing things as something that we need to suffer in, and seeing the world as things that we've got to suffer in, maybe we see the things that we see as signs. Instead of suffering, it's simply signs. And the signs are that we can make some change or make some adjustments to ourselves, to our perspective, to what attitude and what energy we're bringing to this thing that may have this overwhelming feeling of doom and dread that's coming along with it. You guys have heard me talk about awfulizing before. It's where you take the worst case scenario and you run it through your mind and you think that you're preparing for it, but when you awfulize, you're really just creating a worst case scenario. You're not digging deep into why it is that you're afraid anyway, and being open and talking about that and sharing what's real for you without necessarily having the judgment on yourself. I think we discriminate against ourselves really, really harshly. I think that we treat ourselves very poorly. And one of the things that, and I mentioned in the previous podcast as to why we fail, is a lot of times we have a very poor relationship to ourselves. And if I were to say to you in offering this challenge today, one thing that I believe can help you more than anything would be to lean into the relationships that you have and talk to people and ask, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? I mean, this is a lot that's going on. There's a lot we're experiencing. Are you doing okay? What are you not doing well with? Or what scares you the most? Or what's causing you to feel maybe some feelings that you aren't enjoying? Or what's causing you to feel some of the things that may be causing you to suffer a bit? Like where is that coming from and what is it? Like being willing to have that conversation and then wait on the answer and start to drill down just a bit on it with the people that you care about can give some real life to the relationship. And in doing that, I think you feel better because you see that the relationship is growing a bit. And you might say, well, Ronnie, I don't know if I have anybody to do that with. Well, then my challenge for you would be to turn that conversation in to yourself and ask yourself, well, how am I not being vulnerable and authentic? And how am I not being passionate and being courageous? From the sense that if I was willing to do those things, it might cause people to want to be around me a little bit more. Maybe I could forge some better relationships because I turned my passion on and I was willing to step boldly into something new, some bold, massive action towards anything. Maybe even just my physical health. Maybe bold, massive actions toward a better spiritual walk and engaging in a community, joining a group, going to a church, whatever that could be for a person. Maybe if you were willing to step into that a little more, maybe you would find some people that you could do this with. And so my challenge in this episode, this podcast, and again, it's a shorter one, would be that you're willing to, over the next day or two, have some tougher conversations. Be willing to own some of the things that you're afraid of, some of the fear that you may be experiencing, some of the uncertainty. And if right now you're like, nah, I'm absolutely clear on what I'm doing and I'm crushing it every day, then great. Let's imagine you're sitting up on a high horse. Can you get off that high horse just for a minute to check in with the people that are around you that may not be doing that the same way as you? Because if you're willing to do that, I think you'll see that there's some people around you that you can support and that you can serve with your passion, with your energy to help lift them, that you can be the tide that'll raise some of the ships of the people around you. I'm not talking about rescuing people. I'm not talking about enabling people. I'm not talking about getting bought into some victim mindset. What I am talking about is being an energy for people that helps to move them forward, to help them feel like they're progressing as well. That takes some vulnerability. That takes some courage because you may open up to someone and ask and they may look at you like you're crazy. Well, that's all right. But if you're doing what you know you need to do and being true to you and the feelings that you're having, I think it's a great catalyst. It's a great catalyst for some great conversation. And if you do that right now during these uncertain times, I think you can shore up some of the relationships, build a stronger foundation of trust and even accountability with one another. If I know I can count on you, then you can count on me to do this in the relationship. And I think as we do that, we forge ahead with better, richer relationships, creating better experiences. And then we're not as focused on all these things that may be causing us some fear. And right now is not the time to be afraid. Right now is the time to lean into the people that we have around us, see the resources around us and people that we have that we can lock arms with to keep moving forward towards an overall goal of doing better and making a bigger difference on the planet. Not just for us right now in the moment, but for generations that will come. We're setting a context for what it means to be human and to live in the human condition and have a mutual respect for other human beings as well, digging into those relationships. So that's my challenge for you. Be a little vulnerable, reach out to someone, ask them, say, hey, can we chat for a few minutes? And then just share what's on your heart. I promise you if you'll do that, that's going to be my challenge. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to challenge you to do that. Reach out to somebody, do that, and then I'd love for you to email me. Email me info@dossteam.com, info@dossteam.com. Send me a message on social media, whatever that is. Send me a direct message and let me know how that's going for you, because right now I think we can all lean into each other to support one another to get through some of these uncertain times and hopefully navigate moving through this so we'll be better on the other side. You deserve that, and I know the people around you deserve that as well. So let's make that happen. Thank you guys so much for being on today. I look forward to talking to you again very, very soon. Take care.